Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna everyone, good morning. So thank you so much for coming. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam on this wonderful appearance day of Nishingadev Bhagavan Ki. And of course the appearance day of Nishingadev means the disappearance day of Hiranyakashipu. So today we're reading from Canto number 7. Chapter number 8, entitled Lord Nishingadev Slays the King of Demons. And today we're reading from the 17th verse. So I guess all of you cannot see, so I will just say the verse myself and then we'll do word for word translation together. Satyam vidatum nijapritya bhashitam vyaptim cha bhuteshva kileshu chatmana Adrishtya satyadbhutarupam stambhe sabhayam namrigam namanusham. So this is literally the point in the story where Lord Nishingadev comes out of the pillar. It's the most intense, the most climatic part of the whole scene, and at that time this verse is recited. So you can repeat after me. Satyam, true. Vidhatum, to prove. Nijabritya bhashitam, the words of his own servant Prahlad Maharaj, who had said that his Lord is present everywhere. Vyaptim, the pervasion. Cha, and. Bhuteshu, among the living entities and elements. Akileshu, all. Cha, also. Atmana, of himself. Adrishyata, was seen. Ati, very. Adbhuta, wonderful. Rupam, form. Udvahan, taking. Stambhe, in the pillar. Sabhayam, within the assembly. Na, not. Mrigam, an animal. Na, nor. Manusham, a human being. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. To prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial. In other words, to prove that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, exhibited a wonderful form, never before seen. The form was neither that of a man, nor that of a lion. Thus the Lord appeared in his wonderful form in the assembly hall. Purport. When Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, "Where is your Lord? Is he present in this pillar?" Prahlad Maharaj fearlessly replied, "Yes, my Lord is present everywhere." Therefore, to convince Hiranyakashipu that the statement of Prahlad Maharaj was unmistakably true, the Lord appeared from the pillar. The Lord appeared as half lion and half man, so that Hiranyakashipu could not understand whether the great giant was a lion or a human being. To substantiate Prahlad's statement, the Lord proved that his devotee, as declared in Bhagavad Gita, is never vanquished. Konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Prahlad Maharaj's demoniac father had repeatedly threatened to kill Prahlad, but Prahlad was confident that he could not be killed, since he was protected by the Supreme Lord. By appearing from the pillar, the Lord encouraged his devotees, saying in effect, "Don't worry, I am present here." By manifesting his form as Nrsingadev, the Lord also preserved the truth of Lord Brahma's promise that Hiranyakashipu was not to be killed by any animal or any man. The Lord appeared in a form that could not be said to be fully a man or a lion. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadbhutam Brijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The Lord comes to ensure that the words of his devotees are always kept. Hiranyakashipu had challenged Prahlad, "Where is your God?" Prahlad said, "God is everywhere." This is the difference between a demon and a devotee. A devotee can see Krishna everywhere. He sees Krishna even in matter. But the demon sees matter even when they see Krishna. They can't see Krishna anywhere. It's funny actually when, I don't know if you've heard of Yuri Gagarin, he was like one of the first to go into outer space. So he had gone into outer space as an astronaut. And then he came back, and one time he was at an American school, so he was telling the kids, "Oh, and I went into outer space." And then one boy in the class, he put his hand up and he said, "Did you see God? Did you see God in outer space?" A very innocent child put his hand up. So Yuri Gagarin said, "No, I didn't see God." And then someone else put their hand up and said, "But if he couldn't see God on earth, how will he see God up there? If you can't see God here, you can't see God there." So that was Hiranyakashipu. He couldn't see God anywhere. Here, there, in the pillar, outside, on the altar, nowhere. He didn't see God. He was only seeing matter in spirit. Whereas Prahlad was seeing God everywhere. And therefore Krishna appeared from that pillar Satyam vidatum nija bhritya bhashitam. Bhritya means a servant. So the devotee is always trying to become a servant. And that service attitude conquers the Lord, because the Lord becomes subservient. Therefore King Kulasheka prays in a very beautiful verse, Majjanmana phalamidam maduketa bare mat prathaniya madanugraha esha eva tvad bhritya bhritya paricharika bhritya bhritya bhrityasya bhritya iti mam smaralokanatha. I just want to become the servant of 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 Krishna. Then majjanmana phalamidam, then the fruit of my life will be fulfilled. So the more one becomes a servant, the more Krishna becomes subservient. If you want to baffle Krishna, then go to Krishna with no desire. Because Krishna says in the Gita, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stateva bhajan. Whatever you come to me with, whatever you desire, I will reward you accordingly. So if you want to confuse Krishna, come to Krishna with no desire whatsoever. No, why have you come? No desire. I love you. So you love me, but I don't know. Then Krishna says, Napadaye ham, he says to the gopis, Niravadya samya, I can't reciprocate with your love. You made me contradict my words. Krishna becomes subservient, conquered. So Hiranyakashipu couldn't see Krishna, but Prahlad could, and therefore the Lord appeared, Satyam Vidatum, to make those words of Prahlad. Yes, Krishna is in the pillar. Krishna appeared from that pillar to make those words true. But it's said also by the commentators in this verse that Krishna also appeared from the pillar to make two other devotees' words true as well. The other person's words that had to come true were Brahma's words, because Brahma had given Hiranyakashipu the boons that, you will not be killed like this or this or this or this or this or this. So the Lord had to come in such a way from the pillar, in a unique form, at a unique time, in a unique way, with a unique mood, to fulfill the words of Brahma, so that his words wouldn't go and be contradicted. So this verse also means Prahlad's words had to come true, Brahmaji's words had to come true, and also Narada's words had to come true. Because when Prahlad was in the womb of Kayadu and all the demigods wanted to kill, knowing that this is a, like father, like son, this guy's also going to be a terrorist. So therefore he said, no, the demigod said, no, kill them. Narad Muni said, no, stop. This boy in the womb, even though in the womb of the wife of such a demon, he will be a great devotee. So he said that to fulfill the words of Narad Muni, to show the greatness of Prahlad, that the Lord was willing to go to these lengths in such a unique way to save him. He proved Narad Muni's words. So like this whole 7th canto, every canto has a different subject matter, and it said the subject matter of the 7th canto is uti, or creative impetus. What is the creative impetus? Lust. When one has lust, then material life begins. When one has lust, then material life expands. And when one has lust, then material life becomes very, very complicated and very, very entangling. And when one has lust, then eventually one will get stuck in that whirlpool of illusion. Therefore, Giriraj Maharaj once asked Srila Prabhupada, why did Krishna create this world? And Prabhupada said, because you wanted it. You wanted it. You had the lust, you had the desire, and therefore it had to be created. And then once we came into the world, because our lusty desires expanded, then the ato griha kshetra sutapta viter janasya moho yamahamma meti, then everything expands. We make cities, we make arrangements, we have complicated society, so many desires, so much complication. One time Prabhupada was walking past a children's playground. So then he said, children's playground. And then Prabhupada pointed in the other direction to the skyline and he said, adults' playground. Children's playground, adults' playground. Another playground where we make it so complicated to expand. So the 7th canto is all about uti, all about the creative impetus, lust, because who can symbolize lust more than Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha? I mean, both of their names have the common element, Hiranya, which means gold. So gold means, yes, wherever there is gold, all other activities of material life will come about. So therefore, creative impetus. But it's also explained that the creative impetus can work in the other way, because when one has pure desires, when one has spiritual desires, when one has deep desires to serve Krishna, then they begin to create their spiritual life, their spiritual world, their spiritual future. So that's also very, very beautiful. So here, what we're discussing in the Bhagavatam is Lord Nrsingadev. Even though Lord Nrsingadev is the hero of the story, actually in the Bhagavatam, Prahlad comes forward more. This story goes on for about 10 chapters in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, and practically 7 to 8 chapters are all about Prahlad Maharaj. Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam doesn't just mean the narrations of the Supreme Lord Bhagavan, but it means the narrations of the Bhagavatas, those who worship the Supreme Lord. But Nrsingadev is very, very unique. You know, they have this picture of Nrsingadev, the one we always see with. So there's when the artist painted that picture of Nrsingadev, Prabhupada was actually in hospital at that time. So you know, when the artist would paint pictures, then they would come to Srila Prabhupada to get them checked. So Prabhupada was in hospital, and they brought the picture of Nrsingadev in, so Prabhupada looked, so he inspected everything. He said, very good. More blood. maybe it was in hospital bath, you know, I don't know. I said, more blood, more blood. It's very like, for Prabhupada, it had to be fearsome, it had to be angry, it had to be like really show the emotion. So sometimes people come to our temples, they just can't understand this picture. You know? Like in the manor, I don't know how many of you have been, it's the first picture right next to Krishna on the altar. So people come, we take them all the way around, they see all the nice pictures. Prabhupada, Panchatattva dancing, Radha Gokulananda, oh, very beautiful. All the flowers, all the scents. So once I was with one devotee, he was taking the people around. So the people came and they were they go, what is this? They said to him. And then he looked at them and he said, this is what happened to the last person who refused to give a donation. So this is very, very, is shocking for people. Nrsingadev is actually shocking. It's shocking. I mean, when I came to the temple first, I have to admit, I mean, I thought Nrsingadev was the demon. I mean, yeah, you think, no? It's like, I was completely baffled. That's the one picture that kind of got me a bit nervous, you know. So it takes something to understand the anger of the Supreme Lord. See, the Bhagavatam is known as Rasamalayam. You know the word alayam, like we say, Bhojanalaya means a restaurant where you eat. Vidyalaya means a place where you learn, like a library. Material world is known as Dukhalaya, the place where you come to have a good time. Not. And Bhagavatam is known as Rasamalayam. Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhoraho Rasika. bhuvi bhavuka. Oh dear friends, come to the Bhagavatam and relish rasa. So every flavor is found in the Bhagavatam. We don't need to go to Hollywood, Bollywood, Tollywood, whatever it may be. All the flavors are there. And if we would ask, what are the three most powerful emotions in the world? Probably we would say love, fear, and anger. These are perhaps the three most intense and powerful emotions in the world. And in this one pastime of the Bhagavatam, we see these emotions played out to their highest degree. We see the love of Prahlad. Prahlad's love, how someone's love is tested? By how much they are willing to go to the edge without giving up their faith in that person. The love of Prahlad, the fear that Hiranyakashipu has when he sees Lord Nrsingadev, and the anger that Nrsingadev has when he comes out of that pillar. It's fearsome. It's really something else. Actually, in Mayapur we have Ugra Nrsimha. Right? This is Nrsimha, because Nrsingadev has different moods. So Ugra Nrsimha means fearsome, like the terrible, fearsome, angry Nrsingadev. And of the Ugra Nrsimhas, there's a type of Nrsingadev deity called Stanu Nrsimha, which means Nrsingadev when he's just come out of the pillar. So if you go to South India, very, very few stapatis, the ones who make the deities, very rarely they make this deity because they can't really find anyone who's willing to worship. Generally, when you come in front of a deity, you're asking for benedictions. But to ask for benedictions in front of Stanu Nrsimha, who's like furious, absolutely furious, even the demigods would not go to him. They were too scared. So generally they never. So when the devotees in Mayapur asked the Stapati, we want this deity, Ugra Nrsimha, Stanu Nrsimha, the most fearsome, the most angry, he was bewildered, are you guys sure? Do you know what you're getting yourself into? But then later on they explained that no, the deity is coming to Mayapur. And he said, oh, the deity is coming to Mayapur? He said, that's okay then. Because what happens is when the deity goes to a dham, then the deity takes on the particular mood of that dham. And because the mood of Sri Dham Mayapur is audarya, magnanimity, giving, therefore, even when Nrsingadev comes to Mayapur in that fearsome, angry mood, still he's in a very, very magnanimous mood. Because Sri Dham Mayapur overflows with that magnanimity. So like this, Nrsingadev is very, very special. His anger is special, his form is special, his way of functioning is special. And Rupa Goswami actually says that there are three forms of the Lord which are known as Paravasta. Paravasta means the most important forms of the Lord. And he says the three most important forms, he says this in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, the three most important forms are Krishna, Ram, and Nrsingadev. Now my question to you is, why do you think that these three forms are considered, why these three in specific are considered the Paravasta or the supreme manifestations of the Lord? Anyone have any idea? Yes? Love. Yes. There could be many reasons actually. But one of the main reasons which is given is because these three forms of the Lord express the most bhakta vatsalya. They express the most love, the most reciprocation, the most intimacy, the most heartfelt service to their devotees. And therefore these forms of the Lord are known as Bhakta Vatsalya. They're very, very kind, very, very involved in the lives of the devotees. And therefore, generally these forms of the Lord become very, very dear to those individuals who would like to have a personal relationship with God, because these forms of the Lord are very, very active. So this is very, very beautiful. They show their love for their devotees. And each form of the Lord, each incarnation shows their love in different ways. Even in the world today, you can find books like The 5 Love Languages. Of course, none of you have read that. But I just browsed through the books in the airport to see what people are reading. So it's very interesting. I was just browsing it just to see what's just for preaching. It's very interesting because the author is basically explaining how different people show their love in different ways. So like, for example, love for one person is that we have to sit down and we have to talk together. Quality time. So that's for them, that's their love language. And for other people, their love language is you have to do something practical for the person. So they'll go out, they'll work hard, they'll earn something, they'll come back and they'll give a gift. And that's love. So if you don't understand the other person's love language, then what happens is you can't appreciate, because the person is going out working hard for you and you just want to sit and talk. And you're thinking, this person doesn't love me. And that person who's going out working hard like day and night to try and bring a gift back, they give it to you and think, this person doesn't appreciate me. Because you have to understand the love language of the other person in order to appreciate the kind of how they're giving their heart to you. So I was reading that, I was thinking, wow, that's interesting. It's good that I didn't get married. I'd be useless at figuring all these things out, you know. I'd be like a complete loser, you know. But I thought this is interesting, even with the Lord. The Lord also has His love languages. For example, the love language of Lord Ram is He shows His love through sacrifice. He's willing to sacrifice the kingdom. He's willing to sacrifice his position. He's willing to sacrifice all comfort. He's willing to even sacrifice his relationship with his own wife. He's just making sacrifices. And that's how Ram shows his love, through making incredible amounts of sacrifice. Krishna shows his love through his playfulness, through disappearing, through playing tricks, through his charisma, through his charm. Therefore, for some people, Krishna's love is also difficult. He comes, he disappears, he does this, he plays a trick, he takes everything away. Krishna is very playful, very unpredictable. That's how he shows his love. That's how he churns the love within the hearts of his devotees. And how does Lord Nrsingadev show his love? Through anger. The more angry, the more he's showing his love. Therefore, it's very, very unique theology, that in this theology, the more anger that's shown is representing the more love that the Lord has for the devotee. Because the love language of Nrsingadev is the language of anger. So, Nrsingadev is becoming very, very angry when his devotee is being harmed. The glory in the 7th canto is not just given to Nrsingadev, as I was explaining, it's very much also given to Prahlad Maharaj. Because Prahlad Maharaj, his devotional accomplishment, his faith is so great, is so unparalleled, that even the Lord is baffled. The Lord is baffled. How can my devotee have so much faith in me? Prahlad is just, nothing bewilders him. Sometimes it's said in life, there's the way of life and there's the way of love. And then there's a scale. And what's happening is if our way of love for Krishna is very light, then if the way of life comes down, some difficulty, then immediately it tips. But when the devotee has such a way of love, when their love is so deep, so substantial, then what happens, it doesn't matter how much the way of life comes, how many challenges there are, how many difficulties come, the scale can never tip. And therefore the real question in everyone's life is not how much the way of life is going to weigh me down, but it's how much the way of love is always going to keep the balance in the other direction. And therefore the Lord gradually, what He does in our life in order to increase the way of love is He keeps adding something to the way of life. So right now, the way of love, the way of life. But Krishna looks at our way of love and says, it's not, no, I want to churn it more. So what Krishna does is He starts putting some more weight on this side, and then it starts going like this, and you think, oh my God, it's going to tip, quick, more love. Then the devotee goes deeper. So then the way of love increases, and then what Krishna does is He puts more weight. And then it's again tipping, and then the devotee. So this is what Krishna does. One devotee used to say to me, if you want the higher taste, you need the higher test. The higher test brings the higher taste. The higher test brings the higher taste. So it's like that. Yes, the devotee will be tested. It's said for the full fragrance of sandalwood to come out, it has to be rubbed again and again and again and again. Then the full fragrance comes out. If you want the full resplendency of gold to come out, then it has to be boiled more and more, higher and higher temperature. If you want the sweetness of sugarcane to come out more and more, it has to be crushed harder and harder. Are you excited? To be rubbed, boiled, crushed. Yes. That's literally what happened to Prahlad. Rubbed, boiled, crushed. Literally. Because he was poor, boiling, boiling oil. Oil, right? Literally crushed, put under the feet of elephants. This is like literal, it's really happening. But the amazing thing is Prahlad was always seeing Krishna. Satyam Vidatum. He's seeing Krishna everywhere. Therefore there's a commentary on the 7th canto. It said that they asked Prahlad, were you not scared when you were put into the fire? Prahlad said, Yagyavai Vishnu. Vishnu is my father. And the Yagya, the fire pit, is known as the mouth of Vishnu. So if you put me in the mouth of my father, you think he's going to eat me? Wow, that's an interesting vision. He said, but Prahlad, were you not scared when they gave you poison? Prahlad said, don't you know? The demigods and the demons churned the milk ocean. And from the milk ocean came Lakshmi. And also from the milk ocean came poison. That means Lakshmi and poison are brother and sister. And if Lakshmi is the consort of my father Vishnu, then that means poison is my maternal uncle. So if you put me in contact with my maternal uncle, do you think he'd do anything to me? But Prahlad, were you not scared when they threw you off the cliff? Prahlad said, don't you know, my father is Vishnu, and Vishnu came as Varahadev, and Varahadev carried the Mother Earth out of the nether regions. And when Vishnu carried Mother Earth, they had a child, so they became married. So therefore, Earth is my mother. And therefore, if you throw me in the lap of my mother, do you think I'm going to die? That's amazing. Just see how Prahlad was able to see Krishna everywhere. Yomam pasyati sarvatra. Sarvam cha mai pasyati, tasyaham na pranashyami, sachame na pranashyati. For one who sees me everywhere, who sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor are they ever lost to me. Prahlad, seeing Krishna everywhere. Prahlad, were you not scared when they threw you into a pit of snakes? Prahlad said, Vishnu is my father. And my father Vishnu is always lying down on the bed of Anantashesh. And Anantashesh is the master of all the snakes. So these snakes, they're the servant of my father. So you think they're going to do anything to me? That's amazing. So the point is, in life we always see ourselves as victims. We think the world is against us. We see danger, we see injustice, we see disappointment. We see causes of fear and apprehension. But for a devotee, they can never get into victim mentality because they see Krishna everywhere. Everything is happening under the plan of Krishna. And Krishna is present, Krishna is active, Krishna is right there. So the devotee can never get bewildered because they see Krishna everywhere. And because Prahlad had this vision, therefore his devotion just came shining out more and more and more. And then Nishingadev came in this transcendental anger. So I'm just going to end today, we'll open it up for some questions, by talking about how Nishingadev's anger is completely spiritual. When the Lord comes, the Lord teaches us how to be angry in a spiritual way. Normally anger is the worst emotion, and even Krishna says that. Krodhat bhavati sammoha smriti vibrama smriti brahmsad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. Krishna says it all begins with anger. Because krodhat bhavati, from anger what is born? Sammoha, delusion. And when one becomes deluded, sammoha smriti vibrama, they lose all their memory. And when they lose their memory, buddhi nashat, they become divorced from their intelligence. And when they become divorced from their intelligence, pranashyati, they fall down into the material pool. So most people in this world are victims of anger. And we also feel that sometimes, victims of anger. But Nishingadev shows how you can be angry in a spiritual way. The first sign that your anger is spiritual anger is that your anger is not based on any kind of selfishness, ego, pride, or personal motivation. When Nishingadev came in that angry form, it's not because he had any agenda, any selfishness, any ego, any pride. It's not because something had been done to him. In fact, the Lord is the most forgiving. The example is Bhrigu Muni, who wanted to test who is God. Is it Brahma, Shiva, or is it Vishnu? And what did he do? He went to Brahma Loka and he neglected to respect Brahma. And immediately Brahma in his mind was boiling up, but he just somehow restrained himself. Just a mental offense, not showing him respect. Brahma was boiling up. Then Bhrigu went to Shiva. And what did he do to Shiva? Shiva came to embrace him. He said, don't embrace me. You're, very foul words. He says, you're unclean. You associate with unclean people, impure. Shiva was ready to kill him. Parvati held him back. A vachika, a word, offense from his words. But then what did Bhrigu do? He went to Vishnu and he fly kicked him in the chest. And what did Vishnu do? He said, oh no, I'm sorry, are you okay? Everything okay? I hope your leg is alright. So this is definitely God. Because God is so forgiving. For himself, God has no issue. There's no problem. Don't get angry. Therefore, when you get angry and there's no ego, there's no pride, it's not about you, it's not about my, how you disrespected me, then that can be said to be spiritual pride, spiritual anger. Even Parikshit had the doubt, because at the beginning of the 7th canto, he asked Sukadev Goswami, I think the Lord is partial, because it seems he always kills the demons and he's saving the demigods. He must be partial. And then, to answer his question, Sukadev Goswami narrates a conversation between Narad Muni and Yudhisthira. Because Yudhisthira was baffled at the Rajasuya sacrifice when Shishupal, who had committed so many offenses against Krishna, Krishna was just patiently waiting. He also did not just jump. Sahadev said that Krishna should be the first one glorified in the Rajasuya sacrifice. So everyone was glorifying Krishna. Shishupal couldn't handle it. So Shishupal started launching abuse at Krishna. So Krishna was just waiting. I'm not going to do anything. I'll give him 100 opportunities. So when he came to the 100th offense, then Krishna said, okay, what can I do now? I have no choice. Then Krishna released his Sudarshan Chakra, ENT surgeon, decapitated him without one drop of blood falling, so that the sacrifice wouldn't be compromised. But then the amazing thing is, when Shishupal was killed, then what happened? Shishupal entered into the body of the Lord. So Yudhisthira was baffled. Everyone saw it. Yudhisthira said, how is it that he was offensive to the Lord, yet the Lord is still allowing him to enter into his existence? And then the whole conversation ensues where Narad Muni explains that the Lord is not partial, rather the Lord is reciprocal. He always reciprocates according to how people treat him. But more than that, the Lord is merciful. The Lord can actually go beyond. He can give much more than he receives. And therefore, the first sign of spiritual anger is anger when there is no personal agenda, no selfishness, no pride, no ego. Then you can be said to be spiritually angry. And that is fully exhibited in Nishingadev. The second sign that one is experiencing spiritual anger is that one doesn't lose their intelligence when they get angry. Have you ever become angry and stayed in perfect intelligence? Once I was on book distribution and I met someone and he said, oh yeah, I got out of jail today. I said, wow. So, just started having a casual conversation with him, as you do. Like, yeah, what did you go to jail for? I actually asked him. First I said, how long were you in jail? He said, 3 years. I said, what did you do? He said, I was on a night out with my girlfriend and we flagged the taxi down. And he said, like sometimes when you flag a taxi down, then the taxi stops like 20 meters ahead or something. So he said the taxi stopped and we were walking towards the taxi and another person just came into the taxi, probably didn't even know. And he said, I just don't know what happened, just what came over me. I just became so angry. I came into the taxi and I punched the guy. GBH. 2 years in prison. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. So the sign of spiritual anger is when you become angry, but you don't lose your intelligence at all. And the proof that Nishingadev didn't lose was completely perfect intelligent consciousness is because he somehow managed so intelligently to circumvent all of Hiranyakashipu's boons and come in such a way that no one could ever have imagined. In transcendental anger, he appears in this completely specific way, intelligent way to kill Hiranyakashipu. So he doesn't come at day or night, he comes in twilight, right in the neither day nor night. He doesn't come in a man or an animal, he comes in half man, half lion. He doesn't come inside or outside, he comes. He doesn't kill him in the air or on the ground, he kills him. He doesn't kill with any weapon, he kills with nails. I mean, so like, this takes some thinking, you know? Like, you can't just like, in the moment, can you think about this, all this stuff, you know? Like, okay, I've got to do it like this. When you're angry, it's like, ah. So this means it's spiritual anger. Because spiritual anger is when you become angry, but you don't lose your intelligence. Another sign that it's spiritual anger is when you become angry, but there's still room for forgiveness. And not just room for forgiveness, room for the greatest type of forgiveness. So what happens? Nishingadev comes out like angry like anything. But then later on, once he's pacified by Prahlad, what does Prahlad say? Can you deliver my father? Now you got to imagine, Nishingadev came in this transcendently angry mood to kill the person. And now Prahlad is saying, can you forgive him? Can you deliver him? But what does the Lord say? Forget about him. 21 generations. 21 generations are already purified by your devotion. I'm ready to forgive them. But when someone has a type of anger where they can't let go, they can't forgive, they can't get it out of their mind, they're constantly haunted, hijacked, and constantly sticking there in the mind, you can understand this material anger. So 21 generations, that's what happens when someone becomes a pure devotee. It should be noted, sometimes people say 21 generations automatically liberated. It's not quite like that, because everyone has to make their decision to want to go to the spiritual world. But what the Sanskrit actually says is 21 generations purified. And what that means is all these generations of family of a pure devotee will receive incredible opportunities to enter into the spiritual world, unlimited opportunities. The whole family will be purified in that way. So spiritual anger means there's always that room for forgiveness. Spiritual anger also means that when someone becomes angry, and it actually makes the environment uplifted. Normally when someone becomes angry, the whole energy of the place goes down. Have you ever been in a meeting where someone lost it? I mean, it's so awkward. It's just so draining. You almost feel like, oh my God, like the whole atmosphere has been contaminated by someone's anger. And it almost takes like so much time to actually get it back to like normal. Because material anger defiles the whole environment. But what happened from Nishingadev's anger? The whole world again began to flourish. It was like Independence Day for 33 million demigods. It's funny, it's explained in the Bhagavatam when Hiranyakashipu and Nishingadev were fighting, the demigods, they were not sure. They were not sure if Nishingadev was going to win. So they were watching, but they were watching from behind, like hiding and watching. Because they thought if we watch and, Hiranyakashipu ends up winning, and they thought we were on Nishingadev's side, then it's going to be all over for us, So sometimes secretly you want someone to win, but you don't want to show in the world in case the other party wins. So they said they were hiding and watching because they were fearful. So the Lord comes, Indrari Vyakulam Lokam. The Lord comes to free the demigods. So the demigods were freed, and when the demigods are freed, then all auspiciousness in the universe comes about. So it's spiritual anger when the atmosphere around you as the result of that anger becomes uplifted. And you know something is spiritual anger when people remember your exhibition of anger and they become inspired, enthused, elevated, and enlightened for generations to come. When was the last time we got angry and then it became a cause of, great spiritual inspiration for generations to come? Generally not. But Nrsingadev's anger has caused so many devotees to remember Nrsingadev's anger and become more and more saintly. And therefore here we are today, remembering Nrsingadev's anger. So this is how you understand spiritual anger. So then people see, like this person saw the picture of Nrsingadev, very, very angry. And again, to them it just looks like they just see material anger, but it's not material anger. Because spiritual anger means there's no selfishness. Spiritual anger means you don't lose your intelligence. Spiritual anger means you're always ready to forgive. Spiritual anger means that anger uplifts the environment around you. And spiritual anger is glorified for generations to come. And when people remember that anger, they actually become more saintly. When someone remembers your anger and it makes them more saintly, you have to understand that spiritual anger. And therefore, even sometimes the devotees may get angry. Even sometimes Srila Prabhupada became angry. However, Srila Prabhupada's anger was like a deep ocean. On the surface there may be waves, but inside there is deep calmness. So they show on the external some anger, but inside there's complete equilibrium of consciousness. And so today we're remembering the transcendental anger of Nrsingadev, because that was the love language of Nrsingadev. When we see that picture of Nrsingadev in incredible fierceness, that should remind us of the depth of love. And when we have that vision of Nrsingadev, then the vision of Nrsingadev is very, very purifying, very, very nourishing, very, very uplifting, and very, very inspiring. And that's what we're remembering today. Nrsingadev Bhagavan Ki Bhaktaraj Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Thank you so much. So, do we have time? We have time if anyone has any questions or comments, or if there's anything about this that you'd like to know more about. Yes, Mataji.
Devotional life, maybe we are very impure and there are many things in our heart, and when we read Prabhupada's books, it opens up something in us. We read things like purity is the force, and we read things like leaving all these things you're talking about, sinful life and sinful activity is good for us because we can't progress on a spiritual path. And so we take shelter of a spiritual master, and that spiritual master helps us to rise above difficult things that constrain us. But having gone through that, we find that as we progress, sometimes we are misjudged and we are looked at and treated in a way that's perhaps not the right way. And it can go on for a very long time. And sometimes people can get together and they form groups and they can look at you and they can treat you in a bad way. And this is not just, a single individual. This can happen to many people in many different circumstances. And when we're in such a spiritual environment and when people are trying their best and they've progressed on the path through the help of the spiritual master. So how does one deal with something? How does one pray to the Lord? How does one develop Prahlad-like faith so that we can push on Prabhupada's movement? We have no desire for sinful activity. We have the desire to serve Prabhupada, and we have the desire to serve Guru. That's our life mission. Thank you very much.
Yes, so sometimes in our life we are misjudged. First thing to realize is that no one is exempt. Krishna was misjudged many, many times. Krishna was misjudged in the pastime of the Shamantaka duel, where Krishna was wrongly accused. And even today, people wrongly accuse Krishna dancing with the gopis and so on and so forth. So Krishna is misjudged. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was misjudged when he was in ecstasy chanting Gopi Gopi, relishing the most deepest emotions of the gopis. Others misjudged him, saying, "What is this? This is..." They couldn't understand. Srila Prabhupada was misjudged. Some people question Srila Prabhupada's tactics, strategies for spreading Krishna consciousness. Sometimes people misjudge Prabhupada's motivation. Jesus was misjudged. Everyone was misjudged. No one is exempt in the world, because we live in a world in which Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, everyone is living with the 6 enemies. Yet we live with each other, and it's part of the process. When I first joined the temple, then obviously, like, we would do all the services. So one of the services we would do is chop vegetables in the kitchen. So there used to be this potato machine. I don't know if you have one of them here. So, okay, yes, I can see you have the realization. There's this potato machine where it has like a rough kind of plate on the bottom, and then you put a water pipe in it, cold water, and then it spins, and then you put all these potatoes in it, and then you just watch. And it looks a bit painful, like cold water, then you're spinning round and round, and then you got this rough edge, and then all the potatoes are rubbing against each other. So one day I remember I was looking at that and I was like, this is the story of my life. This is what the Brahmachari ashram is, like a microcosm of the Brahmachari ashram. And I thought, my God, it's all coming out. And then after 5 minutes, all the potatoes came out gleaming white. And I realized it's all part of it. Sandalwood has to be rubbed. Gold has to be boiled. And sugarcane has to be crushed. Burijan Prabhu said something beautiful. He made a prayer. Once he saw the sugarcane machine in Vrindavan, they have that wheel. And he made a prayer. He said, "May the hard crushing wheel of life extract some humility from my offense-hardened heart. And may the nectar of that humility give rise to pure love for Krishna." Like, wow. May the hard crushing wheel of life extract some humility from my offense-hardened heart. And may the nectar of that humility give rise to pure love for Krishna. Basically, there can't be prema unless there's dainya. Humility must arise. When one becomes very, very humble, then the heart becomes very, very soft. And when that soft heart comes about, then love blossoms. So basically, we're very hard-hearted. And therefore, there are harsh experiences in the world which are actually meant to soften us. They're actually meant to purify us and make the heart a more fertile place. And one of the most harshest experiences is when people misjudge you. But that's the time when we take shelter of humility. That's the time when we realize this is a provocation of material nature which is meant to help me develop my inner muscles. Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book, one's greatness is measured by their ability to tolerate provoking situations. When I read that, I was like, oh no. One's greatness is measured. This is an incredible statement. You just put this one up on your wall and read it every day. One's greatness is measured by their ability to tolerate provoking situations. And then you see like Prahlad, okay, now I understand, Bhakta Shiromani, how much provocation, how much misjudgment. So no one is exempt, it will happen in this world, and it's part of the ingredients. See, one girl came to the mother and said like, oh, I'm depressed. She said, okay, I'll make you a cake. So the girl said, yes, great. That will make me feel better. So then the mother brought gave her like a sack of sugar. It's got like sugar. Just sugar. No, I want a cake. And then the mum brought her some flour. She said, I don't know flour. What will I do? I don't eat flour. Then the mum brought her some whatever, I'm not a cook, I don't know. Basically, she brought all the ingredients separately. And she was like, no, I don't want any of those. And the mother said, but all of this together makes the cake. So we have to understand what happens is we isolate things in our life and we're not able to see that it's part of a bigger plan. That's the problem. We judge things in the moment and we judge things in isolation. This is the problem. In your life, if you judge things in the moment, not seeing that many things are before and after, and if you judge things in isolation, not seeing that that's one experience as part of many others, then you become bewildered and deflated by things. But when you're able to not judge it in the moment or judge it in isolation, but see it in the bigger picture over a span of time, then you begin to utilize that thing. We become so annoyed when someone judges us, but we don't consider how many times we judged others. It's just going on. I once met a person. He went to a Vipassana retreat. You know Vipassana is like a Buddhist retreat. So on that retreat you have to do Mauna Vrat for 10 days. So can you imagine like turning up in a room like this to 50 people you don't know and you can't say anything to each other, but you live with them for 10 days. So I asked him, what was your realization after 10 days? He said, I had one realization that just was blaring out. I said, what was it? He said, I realized how judgmental I am. I said, why? He said, because I was living with all these people for 10 days and I was watching them, but I couldn't speak to them. But the amazing thing is, even though I had not spoken to any of them, just by watching them, every single person, I had made a picture of them in my mind. And he said, on the 10th day when we broke our silence and I started speaking to these people, I realized I was wrong in every single situation. Because the tendency of the mind is just to walk around, look at people and judge and misjudge. So it's going on. So we are there. Sometimes we become misjudged. It's the only way Krishna teaches us, don't judge others. Only when we feel the pain of being misjudged do we sometimes develop that sensitivity to not look around and constantly make projections on other people. So we have to become expert at utilizing all these challenging situations of life to become more thoughtful and more devotional. Easier said than done. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So my question is, as material beings, how do we prevent material anger? Because often when we do get angry, it's because our pride and ego is triggered, and that makes us feel vulnerable. So that's often when we get angry. So, and if we do get angry, how do we maintain the internal calm?
Thank you. One time Socrates, he was someone came up to him and said, so he just started hurling abuse at Socrates. He said, you're greedy, you're angry, you're lusty. He just started hurling abuse at him about his character. So Socrates just stayed quiet. And one of Socrates' friends, he was there. So when this person left, he said, I can't believe he said all of that stuff. And then Socrates said, it's true. So his friend said, what do you mean it's true? I've never seen that in any of you. I've never seen that in any of your words, your actions, your deeds, or anything. Socrates said, it's all there. But I have culture. And therefore you don't see it. And then he realized, so Socrates was making the point that these things are there. But it's how one deals with it. So it's not a question of like, how do I stop getting angry? It will come. It's just part. Even the Nectar of Instruction says, Vacho Vegam Manasakroda Vegam. Which means, who is qualified to make disciples all over the world? One who can control the Vegam, the pushings of anger. In other words, even when that impulse comes, they're not overwhelmed by it. Like for example, Krishna also gives this analogy of the ocean, which is ever being filled with rivers but never overflows. So the real point is, how do you manage your anger so that it doesn't degrade you? That's the real point. And so generally what happens in anger is people go to one of two extremes. Either they let it loose or they lock it up. Either they just express it impulsively, instinctively in words, in actions, and then it becomes destructive. Or what they do is they just remove themselves, they lock it up, but then they just burn inside more and more and more. And then eventually you know what that means. It's going to come out at some point. So all of us do this. Either we let it loose or we lock it up. But the idea is one must find always ways to process their anger, digest their anger, and become elevated and more wise through actually that process of expressing one's anger, but in an environment where one can actually be uplifted. And so that's really important. If there's something in your heart that you feel very angry about, then it's very important to speak to someone who can actually help you to process it. Otherwise, it's going to be a block. If there's some bitterness, if there's some anger, if there's some resentment in the heart, it's block. The acharyas say that Dhritarashtra, even though at the end when Vidura encouraged him to leave the palace and he went to the north and he did all his austerity, and the Bhagavatam said Dhritarashtra attained the absolute, the commentators say he didn't attain pure love for Krishna. And you know why? There was one thing that Dhritarashtra was holding on to. And you know what it was? His animosity and anger towards the Pandavas. And his bad feeling specifically towards Bhima. And the acharyas say, while in your heart you have some negativity, some bitterness, some anger towards a Vaishnav, or that means that space in your heart is hijacked, and therefore love cannot fully blossom. So it's so important to be able to let go. It's hard, but one must do that through processing the anger. And how do you process it? Through Vaishnava Sangha, through Vaishnava Siddhanta, through philosophy, and ultimately by being conquered by Krishna's sweetness. Because when you realize how kind Krishna is being to us every day, then in the volume of that appreciation and gratitude towards Krishna, all the anger and frustration towards the temporary, insignificant ethereal, transitory phantasmagoria of this world. You just think like, why am I going to take it so serious? Am I really going to take this so serious? It's amazing what we take so seriously. But we need to bring that perspective. It's okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Firstly, thank you very much for coming to South Africa. You've given us a really new gradient with the flavors of love. Today is 11 years since my husband passed, and I was always saying, oh my gosh, no flowers, no chocolates, no things like that. But today I realized the gifts came with patience, tolerance, and freedom. So the flavors of love, that's how different people express their love to you. So that's one point. Second point is, I want to compliment these two children. They were so attentive, and my eye is always on children. So they listened to you. So really, I'm so impressed with their...
Who is this guy?
And third point, Prabhu, as a Maharaj, third point is, as a mother, and from all the mothers here, put on your jersey. We'll catch a cold.
I'm a Londoner. This is summertime. Yes, Mom. Thank you so much. All right. Any last? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is twofold. Is a mom's anger towards their child when they put themselves in danger, like maybe trying to stick their hand in the fan or do something that put themselves at risk, is that anger spiritual? And also on the parallel of Mother Yashoda, when she was angry, when Krishna was stealing the button and she took the whipping stick. So can we compare that her anger, which gave us the most relishable pastime of Lord Damodar being bound, more relishable than Lord Nishingadev's anger in protecting Prahlad?
Thank you. So remember, the first quality I mentioned of spiritual anger is that there's no selfishness. It's not for one's own good. It's not for one's own agenda. So yes, when the mother becomes angry at a child because she sees that the child was doing something which will harm them, which will limit them, which will cause them pain in the long term, and one becomes angry for that reason, that's definitely spiritual anger. Because there's no personal consideration there, it's just love. And remember, that's a language of love. Anger is also a language of love. But too often in the world today, people don't know how to express that anger. It's very, so definitely. And yes, Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna is that. It's interesting that so every scripture has something called a Paribhasa Sutra. A Paribhasa Sutra means a verse which almost exemplifies the purpose of that scripture. So for example, Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna is the Paribhasa Sutra. Bhagavad Gita, Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto, Paribhasa Sutra. Bhagavatam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam, Paribhasa Sutra. Jiva Goswami says the 10th canto, Krishna's pastimes, have their own Paribhasa Sutra. And you know where the Paribhasa Sutra of Krishna's pastimes in the 10th canto appears? In the pastime where Mother Yashoda looks into Krishna's mouth because she thinks he's eaten dirt and she sees the whole universe. And after she has that vision, then a verse appears in the 10th canto. I can't remember it now. But that verse appears. And that verse basically says, Mother Yashoda saw the universe is inside Krishna's mouth. Krishna, who is worshipped by all the sages, the demigods, the Shrutis, who's glorified in all the Vedas as the Supreme Person. And then the very next moment, Mother Yashoda saw, this is just my rascal child. So Jiva Goswami says this is the Paribhasa Sutra of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Now when I read that, that was puzzling to me, because I thought the height of love in the 10th canto is Krishna and the gopis. So you would begin to think, like, why isn't the Paribhasa Sutra of the Bhagavatam Krishna's love for the gopis? Because that is the highest, Krishna's love for Radharani. Why didn't that? Why isn't that? So I have a philosophical speculation on it, which I'll happily share with you, and someone can correct me if they think I'm wrong, which could well be true. The 10th canto is meant to attract us to the selfless love exchange between Krishna and the devotees. The 10th canto is meant to exemplify the most selfless type of love. Prabhupada said that the most selfless type of love we find in the material world is the love between a mother and a child. So, my conjecture is that the love between Mother and Yashoda is the most relatable type of love that we experience in this world. Because the love between a mother and a child is so universal that that type of love is more relatable in its purity. Like I often tell people, every single relationship in my life changed. With my spiritual master, with my friends, with my teachers, with so many family members. But the only one relationship to this day that has not changed is the relationship with my mother. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a Swami. You're just a kid. You are a kid. That's what you are. And that's what a mum sees you as. So I realized that's a type of love which just sees beyond all of that, and it's just very, very pure. So yes, Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna in the spiritual world, that anger is the purity of that spiritual anger, that selflessness, that no, Krishna should not be in trouble, Krishna should not be like that. Is that okay? All right. Do we finish here? I think we should finish here. So thank you so much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shangadev Bhagavan ki jai, Bhaktaraj Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.